Hello, good afternoon everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Facebook Live at the Aquarium of Niagara. My name is Sam, I'm one of the aquarists here, and joining me over here we have Kathy, another one of our aquarists, and we are here to talk about something very, very special today, and that is Endangered Species Day. So it's good to be aware of animals and their statuses in their natural habitat. We're going to be talking about one animal you might be really familiar with, but maybe not know too much about, and that's going to be seahorses today. So everyone usually is pretty familiar with what a seahorse is, but we're going to go deeper into it today to figure out what makes them so unique and figure out what their status is in their natural habitat. So as you can see, these guys are swimming around, grabbing things with that prehensile tail. That's a big characteristic of a seahorse. But something I do want to let you know is that these guys are fish. So even though they don't really look like a typical fish, they swim upright, they have that dorsal fin on their back that's propelling them around, a really long snout-like mouth. They are fish. And right now, the species of seahorses that we are looking at, these guys are considered to be vulnerable. Now, they usually hang out in habitats like seagrass beds. Some species hang out in coral reefs. And what a great view. We're checking out our seahorses actually eating right now. So Kathy went around back and she poured some food into the water. It looks like, are these brine shrimp?
Yeah, so I put some brine shrimp and some mysis shrimp in there.
And they just suck them up with their little tube mouth?
Yeah, so seahorses don't have teeth actually, and they kind of use that suction power to siphon that food right in. They can actually pull food away from as far as an inch away from them. They don't also have stomachs the way that we do, so they have to eat constantly, and they can actually eat around 3,000 brine shrimp per day because they're constantly eating. We feed our seahorses 3 times a day to make sure that they constantly have that food in the water.
So what species of seahorse are we looking at here, Kathy?
So these are Hippocampus erectus, our lined seahorses. We also have a banded pipefish in here, which is a member of the the cygnathid family, and cygnathids are seahorses and pipefish. You can kind of notice that it looks like a seahorse if you stretch it out. It has that same snout, the same long snout, same thing with the no teeth and the stomach. So it constantly has to eat as well.
So with these guys, where would they be naturally found, like in their normal habitat?
So I know it's a little bit confusing. We got all sorts of stuff going on here. We got some kelp, we got some seagrass. But normally they could be found in seagrass beds, they could be found in mangrove forests, they could be found on coral reefs, and typically in shallow waters, and tropical and temperate. So they can get a little bit colder.
All right. So given that it is Endangered Species Day, are these guys considered to be endangered at all?
So there are close to 47 species of seahorses. This species specifically is considered vulnerable by the IUCN Red List, though there are other species that may be more or less endangered.
So when we say that these guys are vulnerable, that means that they aren't really endangered yet, but they too easily could become endangered and be on that endangered species list. So what's causing that? What's causing that drop-off in seahorse populations?
So there's a couple things. One of the primary things is habitat loss. So habitat loss, like I said, they live in coral reefs, seagrass beds, and these are areas that are also under threat. Seagrass beds, for example, they're plants. A lot of people don't realize, but they're actually flowering plants, and they need sunlight just like any other plant would. So if there's pollution in the water, or if there's a lot of runoff, it could cloud up the water, it could cause an algal bloom, and that blocks off the sunlight from getting to those plants. Also, boater traffic, the propellers can leave scars in the seagrass beds, anchors as well, and then any other sort of pollution. So all things that we just need to be mindful of, not putting too many pesticides, watching what we're putting on our lawns, everything runs off, disposing of trash appropriately, and then just being responsible when we're out on the water. Another thing is coral reefs, as we mentioned. So Sam, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. So not only do seahorses live in those seagrass beds like Kathy was talking about, Seahorses are just one of the species that will inhabit coral reefs at some point in their life, if not throughout their entire lifetime. Coral reefs themselves are animals, but they're experiencing a drop-off as well, and we're seeing coral reefs die off, and as a result, a lot of animal species are following suit. And that goes back to a lot of what Kathy was talking about as far as water quality pollution is concerned. Corals are extremely sensitive, and things that are in the water or any sort of changes to the temperature, the acidity. If the water is too acidic, then the coral can start to die off. Think about drinking really acidic soda. What would happen to your teeth? They would kind of just rot, and corals are the same way. So without the corals, we don't have the amount of animals. And how many animals are dependent on coral reefs, not just seahorses?
Millions of animals.
Millions. About 3 million? I think
3 million was a number that was tossed around.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize, and it's the same goes for seagrass beds, is they're what's considered a nursery habitat. So a lot of fish, larger fish, sport fish, that you don't think about in association with living on a reef or in a coral, in a seagrass bed, they spend their infant years in those habitats, protected in these environments. So seahorses, we'll shift a little bit back to that. They don't really have predators, any major natural predators. Their most notable predator is humans, unfortunately, taking them for the pet trade or for use in traditional medicines. But they are very slow swimmers, so they can't necessarily get away. But what they are fantastic at is camouflage. They can get really uptight with something, grab onto it with their prehensile tail, sway back and forth, just like those seagrass beds. Their coloring usually blends right in. They also have these bony plates that are really good for defense for them. Now, like I said, they aren't the best swimmers. They have a fin on their back, which you might be able to see for one of them. And that fin can move up to 35 times a second. It can flap to kind of propel them forward. I saw a fun statistic that they can move up to 150 centimeters a mile, which is about 5 feet per mile. So they're real speed demons, these guys. They have pectoral fins on either side of their head as well, and those are kind of used for steering. So this guy that you actually see right up front, he kind of has a little bit of a curve in his snout. That is our only male in this exhibit. So you can kind of see on his belly, it looks more like a pouch. It's a lot softer. And that is his brood pouch. It's where he actually keeps the eggs. So the female will give the eggs to him, he'll fertilize them inside that pouch, and then he'll hold on to them for a length of time. It varies on the species. So he currently does have eggs in there, which is why it's a little bit round, but you can see the female kind of right next to him, that lighter gray one. She doesn't have that kind of soft looking pouch. She just has those plates all the way down, and that's how you can tell the difference between the genders.
So that's a pretty common fact. A lot of people know of seahorses, that the males will essentially give birth to the eggs. But Kathy, do you have a favorite fun fact about seahorses?
Oh, I think my favorite fun fact would have been that they can move like to 5 feet a minute.
Five feet a minute, or
5 feet a
mile.
Yes.
Yeah.
The largest seahorse is called the big-bellied seahorse, and they can get over a foot long. Our limed seahorses, they can only get about 7 inches. The size that you see is pretty standard for them. And then the smallest seahorse is called a pygmy seahorse, and they can get about ½ an inch in size. So there's quite the variation between all of them. Sam, do you have a fun fact?
A fun fact about seahorses. I do like the fact that they have that prehensile tail to grab onto not only plants, but you might also see them grabbing onto each other to help them stabilize. Like Kathy was saying, they aren't the most strong swimmers, but every now and then you'll see a couple of seahorses holding tails. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a couple or a pair, but Kathy, do couples tend to stay together for breeding seasons?
So yeah, it depends on the species as well, but most seahorses will mate for a season. They'll stay together, and some of them can actually mate for life as well. But even when they mate during the season, they are typically monogamous during that pair, which means they will only stay with that one seahorse during that time. And they have these really elaborate dancing courtship rituals that they will do during that time.
They're definitely a very neat animal. Something, like I said earlier, a lot of people are familiar with seahorses, but breaking it down, there might be some things that we aren't super familiar with, especially that vulnerable status in their natural habitat, especially with these guys here. So if you would like to help out at home, you can do your part in very small ways every single day, because one small local action can make a global difference. So whether it's recycling or carpooling or walking to wherever you need to go, reusing items, you can find that one thing. It's going to add up, and if you can get friends to join you, even better. But guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Endangered Species Day. Again, my name's Sam.
I'm Kathy.
And we're going to take off. Before we do, don't forget to visit the aquariumofniagara.org to get some fun activities to go along with today's video. And if you feel so generous as to give a donation, you can do that there as well. Guys, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.